it's hard to trade the way you're made. My daddy's ears and my grandfather's fears, but my soul's gonna be my demise. I've got my mother's eyes, a shade of green, a smile and they gleam. That's just my genes. It's not as fun as it seems, because my thoughts, they can't be disguised. I've got my mother's eyes. I look into her eyes and I know that's what mine look like. I realize that I can't break it, I can't fake it. I see the world like a little girl, no shades of gray, and people mean what they say. There's no need to analyze. I've got my mother's eyes, those honest eyes. Oh, I know that's what mine look like. I realize that I can't break it, I can't fake it. I wouldn't trade the way I'm made. My daddy's ears and my grandfather's tears will be counted, but I'm loving and now eyes are on my mother's eyes. Take that money, watch it from singing the river. That's the river low. Take that money, watch it burn, singing the river. The lesson I learned is everything that kills me makes me feel love.
I realised I bought a new tripod and the headmount on it is the wrong screw.
Makes me feel love.
It's too fat. It's like twice the size.
Lately I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things that we could be. Baby, I've been feeling hard to say. No more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars. Oh, baby, I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things that we could be. Oh, baby, I've been feeling hard to say. No more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars. We'll be counting stars.
So I'd just first of all like to say a massive thank you to obviously Lynn, who's been instrumental in organising the evening, and to Bloomsbury, who recently published their new book Ragnarok Creations, which is obviously why we're here tonight, and the band Bright Shapes that have been playing for us. I know you're all eagerly awaiting the canapes, so they'll be out soon, don't worry. Please have a look through the book. We've got it all around the shop. It's a fantastic book. She's obviously spent a lot of time on it and put a lot of hard work into it. And she will be here on Sunday the 6th of April to do a small workshop if any of you want to have a go at creating the Ragrugs. And obviously she will be happy to sign copies if you just sort of tap her on the shoulder. But please give a big round of applause for Lynn Stein.
Well, I'm not used to speaking with a mic and shout if you can't hear me, and I've just had a bit of a panic because my very short speech went astray, and I'm certainly not good at talking just off the cuff. So I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for coming and supporting the event this evening, and to my lovely family and friends who've been so encouraging and supportive for the last few years, whilst I've probably very boringly been beavering away, missing lunch dates and writing into the small hours. There may admittedly have been a few sleepless nights along the way, but all in all, I've utterly enjoyed the whole process of putting the book together and have found my publishers, Bloomsbury, a joy to work with from beginning to end. Given that I used to be, and I'm sure Sharon can vouch for this, the one kept in at lunchtimes at school because I could never remember how to thread up a sewing machine, and my feeble attempt at a grey flannel skirt and needlework ended up as a hot water bottle cover. It still amuses and surprises me that I've ended up doing what I do and been doing it for the past 25 plus years. But honestly, I don't think I could have done this book without the help, input and feedback from my husband Robbie and my children and friends and grandchildren too, in a whole variety of capacities, from photography to proofreading, techie support to modelling, and not least of all, brownie baking. Truly, you will always have my love and my gratitude. Finally, before reading you a few brief extracts from my book, and don't worry, it won't have anything to do with recycling the clothes you're now wearing, I would like to say thank you to Bright Shapes for playing for us this evening. I'm sure you'll all agree that they're excellent. And to Charlie, Bryony, and the rest of the team at Waterstones for hosting this event. I hope that you'll enjoy the evening, and of course, I hope you'll enjoy the book too. So, I'm just going to read a couple of small extracts from the book. And the first being from the actual introduction of the book, so it tells you a bit about kind of where I'm coming from, really. My own enthusiasm for rug hooking and for rag rugs generally comes from a variety of sources, and least of all from any claim to be a talented needlewoman. In fact, my art training was as an exhibition and display designer, and then some years later as an art therapist. Unlike many other makers and collectors of rag rugs, I have no known personal family history where rag rugs featured in our lives. However, my paternal family were textile traders, my grandmother's shops displaying a sumptuous array of buttons and trimmings. Some of my earliest memories, much to my parents' displeasure, are of unpicking and trying to work out the construction of the candlewick bedspreads, which adorned our beds in a style typical of the 1950s. And my sister probably remembers that too. My interests lie in the crafts history on both sides of the Atlantic, with its distinct contrasts, its folk art culture and appearance, and its very inventive use of recycling. I've always been challenged and motivated by the notion of creating or refashioning something precious out of that which might otherwise have been discarded. As a child, I liked to investigate the process of combining different found materials and media, ribbons, string, papers, shoe polish, wax and paint. As a design student back in the late 1960s, I was making and selling hand-painted papier-mâché buttons, brooches and buckles to appear as fashionable accessories in the pages of glossy magazines. Creating marks, pictures, patterns and surfaces from juxtaposed units of looped or tufted colour and texture is what fascinates me as a maker. In this respect, the process of making rag rugs is comparable to mosaic, beadwork, collage, pointillism, and even the British tradition of well dressing, where found materials also provide some of the interest and inspiration. And I'll just read you just a brief little bit about the history. The oldest surviving rag rug in Britain apparently used army uniforms worn in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The heyday of rag rug making in the UK, however, was the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Beyond the Industrial Revolution, the availability of cheap, mass-produced fabrics and clothing, access to mill remnants and thrums for rags, and the advent of jute hessian from India in the 1850s, were certainly contributing factors to continued practice of the craft. Sacks which had contained flour, sugar, potatoes and coffee were also imported from India and could occasionally be coaxed from a friendly grocer. From the early 20th century, Hessian or burlap could be purchased quite cheaply by the yard, and ready-printed designs had also become more affordable. The reason for the relative lack of documentation of rag making in the British Isles is partly due to the fact that, in its day, it was undervalued as a craft. There is a scarcity of examples in museum collections because most rag rugs were worn through before making it that far. Often having been worked in the autumn months to brighten the Christmas hearth, they would gradually, during the course of the year, be demoted via the scullery, eventually reaching the privy or the compost heap outside. It's easy to romanticise the craft as practised then, and to forget the blistered fingers, the cutting out of seams and other preparatory tasks, not to mention the sheer weight of the work as it progressed. The origins of rag making were probably European, but in Britain, unlike North America and Scandinavia, it was simply a folk art born of necessity and rooted in poverty, and as much an activity of everyday life as brewing tea and darning socks.
They gave us the name.
Had a mother and she can read, so I said I should die, and my soul becomes lost, and I know it's nobody's fault but mine. Oh, I've got a sister. I've got a sister and she can see. Yes, and it should die, and my soul becomes lost, and I know it's nobody's fault but mine. And I said it should die, and my soul becomes lost, and I know it's nobody's fault.